Lonely Monk Productions. I don't know if y'all have listened to Now and Then by the Beatles yet, but yo!
That's my Jawn! Hey yo, displace the guilt and...
What's good, friends and family, neighbors near and far? Welcome to an all-new episode of the Yo, That's My Jawn podcast. The podcast, website, brand, movement, way of life dedicated to the embrace and championing of your passions. I'm your host, Nate Runkle, a.k.a. Nate Runkle Taylor's version, a.k.a. the guy in the office already streaming Christmas music, a.k.a. Nate 3.0. Back at it again with yet another episode of the podcast. As always, I hope this podcast finds you all in good health and in good spirits. On today's episode, I chat with Ana Dobken. We have an amazing chat, not just about our music, but about anxiety and mental health and the dreaded social media. I really enjoyed this one, and I think you guys will too. And that's coming up in a minute here. But first, greetings, programs. Hope you all had a very happy Halloween full of both tricks and treats. Mine was a lot of fun. Shouts out to everyone who joined me at McAllister's Brewing for the Halloween trivia/costume contest. And congrats to all of the winners. Fun times indeed. But here we are, already cruising through November and falling back on them clocks. Y'all remember to change those clocks back, right? God, it's stupid, isn't it, that we're still doing this clocks forward, clocks back dance? It's just plain silliness. But let me drop my anti-daylight savings attitude just to tell you that if you are listening to this on the day of release, Monday, November 6th, today is the last day to get your ballot in for this year's 88.5 WXPN countdown, the 885 greatest songs by women. I submitted mine last week after spending over a month beating myself up, going back and forth on not just what songs or artists I wanted on my ballot, but also how to rank them for maximum effect. I took a strategic approach to things here, and as I said when I shared my list on the socials, I thought I'd take a minute to explain why some of my choices were what they were. So, coming in at number 10 was I Have Nothing by Whitney Houston. I needed a Whitney song, and I had thought about I Want to Dance with Somebody for pure infectious poppiness, or My Love Is Your Love for the strongest of vibes. But I Have Nothing, to me, is kind of the pinnacle of Whit's prowess. Not to mention, it features one of my favorite pieces of modulation on any song ever. Number 9 was Silent All These Years by Tori Amos. And I say this with no hyperbole, but Tori was one of the most instrumental artists that taught me how to feel. And Silent All These Years was like the siren song that led me to Little Earthquakes. And there are few things on this planet that I enjoy more than Tori and a piano. Number 8, Ani DeFranco's Both Hands. What I just said about Tori and a piano, Ani and an acoustic is right up there next to it. There's a version of this song with the Doc Severinsen Orchestra that is my absolute everything. It is beyond beautiful. Liz Phair's 6'1" comes in here at number 7. Guyville is one of my favorite albums of all time. It is, to me, sonically perfect, and 6'1" is just a perfect example of that sound. Number 6 is our pal Nicole Atkins with Maybe Tonight. Just a brilliant song that perfectly showcases the power of Nicole's voice. It's the song that made me a fan for life. Number 5 is Fire Inc.'s Tonight Is What It Means to Be Young. This is the first of 2 tracks on my list by Jim Steinman, and my guy just writes these incredible anthems, and this one from the Streets of Fire soundtrack is just too unbelievable in its excellence. Number 4, All Too Well, 10-minute version, Taylor's version by Taylor Swift. Okay, the placement of this song and its inclusion is based entirely on what it represents in my mind. Watching Taylor revisit and reclaim her songs while still in her prime has been incredible to see, and this track would not exist in this form had she not. Throw on top of it a short film that brings back the memories of a time when music videos could be epic narratives like Thriller and November Rain. And guys, it's a no-brainer. It earned its spot. Number 3, Steinman number 2, Celine Dion's It's All Coming Back to Me Now. I mentioned epics, and guys, you get no more epic than this. Celine sings Jim's words with every bit of power and urgency as they deserve in a way that I don't think anyone else could pull off. It is magical. Number 2, Dancing on My Own by Robin. You've heard me talk about it on the show and on the website over and over again, but this is it. This is everything I want in a song. It hits me so hard in the feels that I am regularly overwhelmed listen to it if I pay it the attention it deserves, which is every time because it demands you pay attention. And guys, it's only second because in front of it is the single greatest pop song ever written. And that is Be My Baby by the Ronettes, coming in at number 1. To me, this is what heaven sounds like. The opening kick snare drum parts call forth the coming of 2 minutes and 41 seconds of straight up pure pop perfection. Mike Love once said that Brian Wilson once compared Be My Baby to Einstein's theory of relativity, and that may sound crazy and hyperbolic to you, but to me, oh my God, I absolutely get it. If I were to have to explain to an alien what music can be, I would look no further than Ronnie Spector's voice. I don't know what else to tell you. It's just perfect. So that's my list, and I think I'm happy with it, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Look, I hit submit and immediately started saying things like, oh no, I forgot Fiona's paper bag. And holy crap, where are the Spice Girls? And oh my God, I didn't put anything from the Josie and the Pussycats soundtrack on my list. There are songs and songs that I left off of my submission. And, you know, some I know are going to appear on the countdown with or without my vote. But yeah, today is the last day to get your vote in. So visit www.xpn.org and be a part of an awesome countdown event. Well, what else? Oh, I mentioned it last episode, but Oops All Bards, the actual play RPG podcast that I'm producing, is out now wherever you get your podcasts from. So go subscribe to that and give it a listen. It's a lot of fun, and I think you'll all dig it. New episode drops this Thursday with a behind-the-scenes look at episode 1. And we also got the newly designed Yo That's My Jawn website up there. So head on over to www.yothat'smyjawn.com and follow the link to the website. Sign on up for the mailing list, grab yourself a t-shirt, follow us on the socials at Yo That's My Jawn, all that good stuff. Do it to it. All right, quick break, and then my interview with Rachel Ana Dobken. Yo, That's My Jawn is brought to you by Liquid IV. Guys, it is festival season. And you know me, I love a festival. And the secret to enjoying a festival is to stay hydrated. Liquid IV has you covered while you prep before, power through to the headliner, and recover after the weekend. Liquid IV hydrates 2 times faster than water alone with 3 times the electrolytes of traditional sports drinks. Man, I love Liquid IV. It comes in a convenient packaging, and it's tasty. When you see me at the Exponential Music Festival this fall, you know that I will have Liquid IV on me. And it comes in 12 delicious, refreshing flavors to keep your hydration routine exciting. All right, strawberry used to be my favorite, but they have this new one. It's strawberry lemonade, and it is a banger. 1 stick of Liquid IV in 16 ounces of water hydrates you 2 times faster and more efficiently than water alone. It's non-GMO and free from gluten, dairy, and soy. Liquid IV believes that equitable access to clean and abundant water is the foundation of a healthier world. So Liquid IV partners with leading organizations for innovative solutions to help communities protect both their water and their futures. To date, Liquid IV has donated over 39 million servings in 50-plus countries around the world. Okay, and you can get 20% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use the promo code YTMJ at checkout. That's 20% off anything you order when you shop Better Hydration today using the promo code YTMJ at liquidiv.com. Do it and let's get our fests on. My guest today is a powerhouse multi-instrumentalist, songwriter, and producer. She's worked closely with famed music photographer Danny Clinch as music director of his Transparent Gallery in Asbury Park, New Jersey, and has performed with Ben Kinney of Incubus, Mike McCready, Blind Melon, Robert Randolph, Raylan Baxter, and our old pals Nicole Atkins, G Love, and Low Cut Connie, just to name a few. Her latest single, Cruel, 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 off of her upcoming new album is out now on all streaming sites and the music video available on YouTube. Folks, it is my honor to welcome to the show, Rachel Ana Dobken. Ladies and gentlemen, I am joined today by the great Rachel Ana Dobken. Rachel, thank you for joining me on Yo, That's My Jawn.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so stoked to be here.
And I'm stoked to have you. And this will, for the people listening to it, have happened in the past. But for us here in the present, happy release day on the Cruel, Cruel, Cruel video. Very cool.
So much. Thank you. I really, really appreciate it. It was like, it's like a baby happening.
Yeah.
Like songs in the video. It's like what putting out a record is. It's like having 7 babies.
It's so cool. I'm like due to age and the fact that MTV raised me like a video junkie, and so anytime somebody does a video, especially in 2023 when I feel like people just don't put in the effort anymore, I appreciate it. So.
Oh, hell yeah. Well, I appreciate that because it was definitely a lot of effort on our part, and I had edited the video as well, and it just like it was great. Like Nick Wolf, the director, he's also a musician himself, so it's really great to work with like-minded people who also understand what it means to be a musician and like kind of the nuances of what to capture and what to see and what people want to see. So yeah, and we got like the perfect day when we shot it. So yeah.
It turned out awesome. Like it's just it's a lot of fun, and it's really cool. But I'm jumping ahead because I always like to start these things all the way in the past. So let's start childhood. Like where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Jersey, like outside of Asbury Park, a little bit north of there, and I always knew that music was something that I had innate in me, and I knew that it was something I wanted to do. When I was about 5 years old, my mom gave me a best of the Ed Sullivan Show, and it was like the Beatles, the Beach Boys, the Four Seasons, and the Rolling Stones. And I remember sitting there and being like, yep, this is what I'm going to do with my life. Like no hesitation at all. So yeah, I grew up in Jersey, and I had to really, my dad was a doctor, but also a musician. And my parents were both they had really great taste in music. So I was always raised in an environment where music was a huge part of that.
Were you into what they listened to? Was there any rejection or?
No, I mean, it's funny because my mom sort of let my dad lead more. Although when I got older, like I found out she was into like Bowie and Iggy Pop. And I was like, why didn't you play that more for me growing up? She's like, your dad wanted to play the music. I was like, all right, whatever, fine. So no, I mean, my dad had a really eclectic taste, and he really like helped me define my tastes as a child. Like he played everything from like Steely Dan to the band to Paul Simon and like, jazz, and my mom was like more into Zeppelin and the Stones. So like I had a pretty eclectic mix. And like, again, like being like a young kid listening to a record like Asia is like, you can't really beat that kind of like influence,
Yeah. What you said, he was a musician. What kind of music did he like to play?
Actually, so my dad was a doctor, and he was in medical school during the Vietnam War, and he went to medical school in Europe because all of the medical schools in America were totally full of students, and he couldn't get in because I think everyone was like calling their favors in, and he played upright in a jazz band, and that's how he paid for college.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do those recordings, are they out there? Like,
God, I wish. I don't know. It's so funny because he's like said that story, and he said how like when he flew back to America, he actually had to sell his upright bass for a plane ticket. And I was just like, oh my God, Dad. So, but and I never asked him, like, did you make a full on living as a musician, or did you have another job, or were you able to get financial aid because it just never came up. But I'm curious to know, like, because I do know, especially in Europe, they love jazz. Like, was he able to make a full living in the late 60s, like doing that, early 70s, So I don't know. It's pretty crazy, but yeah.
That's a cool life. I like that.
And he played guitar. He also played trombone. My dad was like very, very musical, but I think in another life he was a musician or would have been a musician, but in this life he was a doctor and I became a musician.
Yeah, see, we sometimes we make children to follow our dreams, like.
Yeah. Well, what happens?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So was guitar your first instrument then, or?
Yeah. So I started on guitar when I was about 8 years old. I mean, I technically started on piano, but I was 5, and didn't have the attention span for it. And then by the time I was 8, and I was like into rock music, I actually really, really wanted to learn the drums. But growing up, my mom, she didn't want it in the house. And she kind of was like, which is an interesting thing now to say in 2023, but she was very like, no, you're a girl. You can play piano or guitar. Like the boys will play the drums. And I was like, I want to play the drums. Why can't I play the drums? So I always knew I had this, I always knew I had a really great sense of time, and I always knew I was a drummer. So by the time I turned 19, I said to my parents, like, listen, this is what I want for my birthday. I want drum lessons. Like, I don't even need a kit. I can do everything on a pad and sticks. And that's kind of how I then became a drummer. And yeah. So, but I started on guitar. Yeah.
Okay. Did on the drum? Did you do anything in school? Like, because that would have been a good gateway into the drums there.
You know what? It's interesting. No, I didn't. I was kind of a closeted musician until I was in college. Like I was a very shy kid. I was more an anxious kid. Like stage fright was a thing for me. So I kind of gave up on my dreams of being a musician. But I always played guitar and sang like sort of in my bedroom. I played in talent day my senior year of high school, but I didn't do jazz band or anything. I just think I don't know why, but I was never like pushed in that direction. I went more in the direction of visual art. So I was like painter, photographer, illustrator. I almost went to school for studio art, but I knew that once I got to college, I was like, the 2 classes I want to take an analog photo class, and I want to take an intro to music theory. And as soon as I was in that music theory class, I was like, yeah, I picked up sort of right where I left off as a child when I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I had some years there where I was like, can I really do this? But yeah, I didn't have formal training musically until I was in college.
Okay. And then you went to Bard, is that right?
Yeah, I went to Bard, which I'm super grateful. I really give Bard a lot of props for like helping me cultivate my sound and honing my skills, because it was a really like welcoming environment. The professors really saw like, oh, here's this girl, she's coming in. You think about it too, by the time like most kids are coming into college and they're going to like music school, they've already been molded, right? Like they're not a blank slate anymore. They've had teachers their whole life telling them, oh, here's how you hold your hand. Here's how I came in and it was kind of like, hey, I have no real training. And the professors were like, wow, here's this girl. She's got raw talent. She has drive. Like we want to help foster her. So I stayed at Bard. I was upstate New York for another 2 years after I graduated. And my jazz professors were so cool. They just were like, don't worry about paying for the extra years. Just sit in on our classes and just like get everything you can out of them. It was really amazing.
That's incredible. That like to have that kind of mentorship is like, there's nothing to compare to that. Like that's just so valuable.
Yeah. And you would hope like, that's really, I think the idyllic like education experience, right? Is that you have professors or teachers that really like allow their students to be who they are while also giving them the tools and the information, the knowledge they need. And unfortunately, that doesn't happen in a lot of like academic settings, especially in the arts, which was really interesting because I actually studied photography and music. And I felt like the photography department was the complete opposite. I was so turned off by like just the rigidness of it. But by the time I was halfway through Bard, I knew I was going to do music. So I just was like, got to finish. Then I can do the band thing. Then I can lead a band. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I've, the audience knows this, but I have ADHD. So I'm going to be jumping all over the place here.
Oh, I love it.
Going back to high school. You said the talent day performance. What did you perform?
So, okay. Me and my 2 best girlfriends were still very good. And actually, actually they're both pregnant right now, and one of them is supposed to have her baby tomorrow, which is very funny. So who knows, maybe by the time this comes out she'll be a mom. We did a acoustic trio version of Steeples by Dispatch. There's
Heck
like
yeah.
this live version that they did that was, I want to say it was not, they had the Live at Madison Square Garden show that they had put out, but there was a live record that they put out, and they did this like beautiful version of Steeples, and it was like these harmonies, and I don't know if there were 3 guitars, but we all played like triple guitar, and it was really cool. And like actually our parents were all there, and they were kind of like, where did the girls, Chelsea and Anna, who I played with, they were both very musical. Chelsea's now like she does stuff with the New Jersey Orchestra. They were both classically trained. Anna, same thing. Her 2 parents are piano teachers. So it was kind of like, I think people were expecting them, but they weren't really expecting me to get up there and play and sing. But we've had talks of like, man, we got to find that video and like put it online.
That was my next question.
I love that you asked that question. It exists somewhere. I don't know where, but I'll have to do some digging.
It's funny you said that. So when I was in high school, I was like heavily involved in the television department. In the television, we had a TV station in our high school, and it was like a cable access channel, and so I did all this work behind the scenes at the TV station. It was rarely in front of the camera, but I just went back to my old high school to actually talk to the guy who was my mentor about podcasting, because he had podcast questions. And so I went back, and he started to tell me that they've been uploading all of the tapes from when I was in high school to YouTube, and talk about a rabbit hole, like. But up there, if anybody wants to try to.
Where did you grow up?
I'm North Penn, so like Lansdale, North Wales. But if anyone wants to go out there, I'm not going to post the link myself, but there's a lip sync video of us doing Jimmy Olsen's Blues by the Spin Doctors as a lip sync, and
that's awesome.
Yeah. So
wow.
So maybe the video will find its way to YouTube, whether you put it there or not.
Yeah. You know what? I don't know. I'm going to put it out in the universe. At one point, like one of the dads had sent it to us, and I was like, oh my God, this is great. And it's like super small. Like it's like pixelated. Like I have no idea how he filmed this. But yeah, I found the brochure. Someone sent me the brochure of our talent day from that year. And it's funny because I went to high school with Charlie Puth.
Oh, okay.
He's in the he was 2 years younger than us, and he's in the program. And it's just like, oh my God, this is gold. Like someone could sell this for something. Who knows?
Heck yeah. That's crazy. So at that time, like, were you writing it all? Like, were you?
It's interesting. I was always writing poetry. I always heard music in my head, but it wasn't until I was about 18 or 19 that I wrote my first song. But I always, and I don't know what it was. I think I like went through a breakup, and I was like, okay, it just was kind of like bubbling up. Like I said, I always had this knowing in me that like, this is what I want to do. When I was a child growing up, I was very nervous, so I couldn't really get beyond it. And it actually kind of made me really upset, because I was like, well, I guess I'm just never going to be a musician in the way that I want, because I can't really handle that pressure. But things were starting to bubble up. I actually had a boyfriend when I was about 18, 19 that was a musician, and he really inspired me. And it ended, and I wrote a song about him. So I think that kind of like that mixed with the taking the intro to music theory class, really, I was just like, okay, it's time now. And then I was taking jazz comp classes and auditing. So I didn't have, again, the pressure of like the grades or the structure that would perhaps put pressure on a kid or whatever teenager, adult, to be like, oh my God, I have to get this done, and this isn't what I want. I could just kind of freely do what felt right. So once I started taking the comp class, I started composing, and I started being able to write on like learning how to read music. That definitely helped. I don't do that now. Like that's a skill that like, it's like remembering your French or your Spanish. If you're not speaking it, you're just like, I could look at a staff and tell you what the notes are, but it would take me a minute,
Yep.
So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I was the same exact way. Like I don't even know that I could even look at it right now. Like like you put it like a sharp or a flat in there, and then I'm gone. Like I'm like forget about it. But yeah, it's like you said, if you don't use it, that goes quickly. What helped you get over the anxiety of it all?
Well, this is actually kind of more of an existential thing. When I was growing up, I had just general anxiety, and I found out when I was, and this is like going to get meta, but I found out like I'm a deep person. I just like get real deep, so don't mind me. When I was about 17, I finally realized like I had this very intense fear of dying that I was trying to grapple with since I was a child. And it was part of like, I think a lot of artists struggle with this because like I feel like we are given this kind of like sensitivity to the perception of the world around us that like, and that's part of why we create the art that we do, right? It's part of why we're able to do what we do and write and express ourselves. But with that comes kind of this like, not burden, but just like if you don't know how to feel your emotions in the proper way, like I did as a child, and I didn't really understand like why I was having fears and anxieties and why I was sort of like an empath and taking on other people's energies and feeling in an intense way. I didn't know how to like deal with all of that. And then once I got older and I was getting ready to go off to college and I was feeling these transitions, I had tools to kind of be like, okay, what am I so afraid of? Why do I feel this way? And one day I just kind of said it like, oh, like you're afraid of dying. And I was like, oh, that's okay. Like now I can like acknowledge that and move on. And honestly, from that moment on, like everything in my life changed. And like I was able to just kind of like live my life. And music was always a huge part of that. And like, as soon as I was able to study it, really, like as soon as I was able to be in a classroom and be like, this is how this works. It was just like, oh my God, I love this. This is my life. I just spent all of my time in the practice rooms. Like didn't have cable. I didn't have Instagram or social media. And it was just like, I'm just learning and absorbing. That's why I say I really, really like owe it to my Bard professors and like that's very special time from like 2008 to 2013 that like it was just like it was really like the right time, like I was ready. I had the right people in my life, and here we are now 10 years after that. Yeah,
it's beautiful. And I'll ask this question. You don't have to answer it, and if you don't want to answer it, I'll cut it. Not an issue at all. Was there death that triggered this anxiety or?
Oh, you know what? It's so bizarre. And I know like, right. We all have our traumas that we like work through and still have to heal. I still don't really know what triggered me as a child. My earliest memories were me just having like really intense anxiety and feeling like I was dying, like being 5 or 6 in classrooms, almost like I was taking on this energy that wasn't even mine. But I think there started being a couple things happen. Like when you're age 8, you start like, that's when things started revving up. And I just remember thinking about like the universe and our like vastness and our mortality and just being honestly really overwhelmed. I don't know. It's possible that something happened like deep, deep in there when I was really young that like, I need to sit with someone and be like, and I've had therapists be like, oh, we need to work on this. No, we never did. But like, it's a really good question. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I have anxiety issues myself, and I remember my first anxiety attack, but I didn't have anything to call it as that, and it's only
how old were you?
Probably 10, 11, somewhere around there. And what triggered it was, I don't know if you remember the Weekly World News. It was like Bat Boy. And
yes.
So there was one of them that was about like, on a certain date of this year, Christ will return and take all of the Christians with him to heaven and stuff like that. And I had this like full on, crisis laying in bed, because I was like, well, what if I don't go and I don't want it all to be over?
Wow.
And like, it wasn't until like, panic attack number 785 that I was like, oh wait, that memory from when I was
Well, and same, I remember I was 8 years old when I had my first panic attack. I was at Disney and Epcot, and it was just like 10 o'clock at night, total sensory overload. And I just like my parents were like, I was overwhelmed and they were like, we got to go take the shuttle. And I'm like, I can't move. And they're like, and thankfully my dad was a doctor because he like saw what was happening. But like, what do you mean you can't move? I was like, I physically can't move because I was hyperventilating so intensely. Like, I don't know if this ever happened to you as a kid when you had panic attack, but like my hands and my feet would become numb. And that's part of the side effect of hyperventilating. And then that triggered, like when I was in second grade, I was having all these panic attacks in school and they were kind of like, it was 1998. Everyone just thought I was a bad kid. They were like, no, you have to be in school. Like, you just don't want to go to school. And I'm like, no, I'm like literally feel like the world is falling apart. Like, what the fuck? Like, why isn't anybody helping me? Like, because when you're a child, exactly, like you can't comprehend like what's happening. Did you have physical symptoms that you were then kind of, that's what you were associating with the experience?
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're like, what's going on?
But yeah, I mean, like, it's one of those things where like, it's just like, oh, maybe I'm dying right now. Maybe that, like.
That's so intense to like, and that's the thing too about these sort of topics. Like when you're a child, and kids are obviously way smarter than we give them credit for and way more affected by things. Like to have that experience as a kid and like lie in bed and think that, like, yeah, that's like a real existential question that like you should, be able to like openly talk about. But I'm sure in your head you were like, I can't talk. Like, what is this? This is just a thought. I don't know how to like communicate this,
Right. And then that's what it was met with, like my I can't remember if it was my mom or my grandmother was just like, oh, that's not going to happen. And, go to bed, essentially.
And like, so, it's interesting because I talk with my friends and people who have like this fear and I think death. And of course, we're like getting off on a crazy tangent, but I love this stuff. This is like, I think the stuff that's like the conversations that are so meaningful, like, because it's not even about, I think as a society and as like a Western civilization, like changing the narrative on like what it means to die and not putting it in these terms that are so scary. And I think it's happening now, but like, again, when you're a kid and you're growing up in an organized religion too, you're just like, you're kind of like throwing these things that are just like, oh my God, like no pun intended, like life or death, right? They're so intense. And then like, I don't know. I think it's important to like be able to have these conversations, like even if you're older or younger. I mean, for me, it was like, yeah, I had to like actually say like, cause I used to have this self-talk where I'd be like, okay, what's the worst that happens? Like, and then I said it one day, oh, you die. And I kind of like laughed. I was like, oh, that's literally the worst. And like, what then? We don't know. So like, why worry? You're not going to know until you're there. And that's my whole philosophy on it now. But yeah, I think like I was learning about the universe and stars and the idea of like the afterlife is like terrifying. Like, it's like this idea of forever. Like for me, that's what is scary. I don't know if that's your experience, what you were thinking.
The concept of space and the universe, even as vast as it is, to me is suffocating.
Yes. Yes.
So I completely understand where you're coming from.
Well, because there's no end. There's no like there's nothing to like tangible to like be like, okay, I can anchor to this. It's like if it's just forever and this non-thing, like that's like the great irony about it, right? It's just like for me, that idea of like forever was what was freaky. And now I don't necessarily believe that, but I also feel, and I've lost people close to me and I've experienced people who have transitioned, like who I've been with. And it's like, for me, it's just about like, we're not supposed to know until we're there. And for us as humans to think like we have control enough to like understand there's a reason why we're not supposed to know yet.
Yeah. Well, even if you did know, what would it change? Like, you can't do anything about it.
I know. That's always like the great thing, right? About like how it's like, it's like a 1 in some billionth percentile that we're even here.
Yeah.
The way that we are with the parents we have, with the DNA we have. And it is a 100% chance that we're going to die. So I don't know.
Constant.
YOLO, right? I guess.
That's right. That's right. It's funny you said about reframing death, though, because that's something my wife has been really, really into, is this concept of like having this hard conversation with parents and with, grandparents and stuff like that. No, we don't.
Okay.
Unless you want to count our dogs, which I'll count them.
Counts in some capacity.
Yeah. But no, like the concept of, not knowing what people want or what they think or fear, because, I lost both my parents. I lost my mom when I was in my 20s, and I lost my dad like 4 years ago. I don't know, time's a flat circle. But anyway.
Yeah, I lost my dad in 2021 to cancer. So I also understand, and I'm sorry for your loss.
And I'm sorry for yours as well, and it, like, there's just so many conversations that I didn't have, because here's another surprise is, I just found out in January, through 23andMe, that my father is not my biological father. So there's like yeah, there's all kinds of stuff going on with me. I'll send a link. I did a storytelling thing for this podcast called Risk, kind of telling the whole story. And
wow, that's amazing.
But like, so the two people that I could have a conversation with that about are gone, and it's literally like, well, what do you do with this? But yeah, those hard conversations, you got to have them, because there's not much time left.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, like, for me, like, I just thought about death a lot as a child. And I think, and it was just in a way that I didn't even realize. And there were certain things that triggered it. Like when I was in health class, or I was in biology, and we're learning about the human body and things that could go wrong. Like, it was just a kind of a mess in my brain. I was just kind of like, it took me a couple of years. Like, childhood was a struggle for me, because I just couldn't get beyond it. And I just didn't really have the tools. I mean, I got a great therapist eventually, but like, again, people are much, much more mentally health conscious now. And I think, to tie it back to like being a musician, especially, and an artist, like, this job, it takes so much out of you, and you have to be so mentally strong. And unfortunately, like, a lot of us are, like, I always say, like, being a musician is like the worst occupation for a musician or an artist, because like what you have to endure to deal with the rejection, to deal with the industry, to deal with, putting yourself out there on a stage and being naked and vulnerable, and then having to like get off stage and be normal again, having to like have normal, like, it is such a mind fuck. And you have to be so strong and like just so mindful, because like, I don't know about you, but like for me, like, and that's again part of my superpower as a musician and a songwriter, is I'm a very sensitive person. But if I don't watch that, it will eat me alive, and it will just, I'll go down into the weeds, and I'll have to be like, all right, let's get centered again. It's okay. And it's really, really hard.
Yeah. I've told this to some people that like, I'm always amazed and impressed by people who, can write honestly and kind of bare their entire soul, because like, I'm a musician myself. Yeah. I'm a songwriter, and those songs that I've written them, and I've tried playing them out, and I can't do it. Like, I just cannot do it. But so like everything I write is like, hey, like, like everything's great.
Happy times. Yeah.
And then I'll write that dark stuff and play it down here in the basement by myself. But,
and it is that, and it's hard because, and I think about this a lot too, because like, yeah, the music I write is very honest and it's very raw. And it happens in moments where I literally don't know how else to cope with it, and I don't know how else to say it. So it comes out of me, right? I'm sure you can understand that as a songwriter yourself, but then it's like, it gets, and I go on stage and I perform it, but still it's like really tough. And and I've gotten better, but you have those nights where you're just like, and especially when you're up there by yourself and you're like, you're totally naked. You're totally naked. And then, and I have these songs that I write a lot. I write a lot about my relationships with people, my romantic relationships, my relationships with myself. I'm like, obviously, especially when you go through a breakup and you get over that person, you don't feel that angst anymore. But a song like Cruel, 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 it's a perfect example. This most recent single, I like kind of can't take myself seriously with some of the lyrics, like, because like the hook itself, I am very proud of. And I feel like lyrically it's very spot on with how I felt in an effective way, which shows like my growth as a writer. But there's other parts where I'm just like word vomiting these emotions. And I'm just like, oh my God, Rachel, could you be more dramatic? Like, Jesus, like now I have to go out and like sing it and share it. And I'm like, do I want to be sharing this? Like, this is so personal, but this is the line of profession. And when people come to me and are like, oh, thank you for saying that, I can relate to this, that's where I go, okay, it was all worth it, But I definitely have my days when especially when I'm feeling sensitive and I'm like, fuck this, the world's not getting anything out of me right now. Like I can't deal with the rejection. I can't deal with seeing a negative comment. I can't deal with being on social media. And you just gotta like, and it's tough.
What's weird is, and this speaks to my own ego, and I'm not, I've accepted it, so it's fine. But and that is, I don't fear rejection, and I don't fear praise. What my fear is that someone's not paying attention.
Stay.
Yeah, and so like when I would do one of those songs or something like that, if there were anyone having a conversation and I'm like, I'm up here bleeding and you're doing whatever you're doing right now, like
I know.
And that's it. That's what I've avoided my entire life. So
yeah. And you got to get over that real quick.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to be like, there's nights where, and like, I film a lot of our shows now for content and stuff. It's like, there are so many nights where and it's like watching, right? It's like watching your tapes back, like as a football player or whatever. And I will rewatch it and I'll like hear people talking and I'll be like, fuck.
Right.
But then they'll be silent at other points. And I'm like, okay, this is good. This is something to note because people are honest. Or you have a kid there that starts dancing. I always say like kids are the real barometer. Like if it's good, they will pay attention. If it's shit, they will not. They will keep walking. But if they stop and they watch, that's a good sign,
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's nothing better than connecting with a kid, making a kid dance.
I know, especially when you're like you said, bleeding your heart out and they're still like, because the same thing, my music's like, listen, I don't write I try and write happier, lighter stuff or stuff that's a little bit more wider, not so micro, like, fuck you, you did this to me, like kind of like heartbreak, but there's places and times for that as well. But like a lot of my songs, like same thing, these like sentiments about death and about letting go, like I write about that a lot and I reflect on that a lot. And I like to put that out there musically because I think too, it helps people and it's relatable. But like, I'll have these kids, like I'll be singing, there's like a song I have, there's a song I have on the new record. It's called Bed You Made. And it's about like essentially having to live with the decisions that you are then reflecting on. And you're like, wow, okay, I really just like, I made my bed. Now I have to lie in it. I can't do anything else, but just like walk right through this. And it's kind of like that. And it's also was like grappling with my dad dying and COVID and feeling trapped. And I can play, like I was playing a song like that recently as solo. And this little kid was just like standing there watching and listening the whole time. And I was like, this is probably like 5 years old. I'm like, this is pretty cool. I was like, let me make sure that there's no curse words in this.
No, it's so true.
Yeah.
So now that I've completely derailed everything,
hey, listen, the takes two. I did too. I'm sorry.
No, never apologize. So you leave Bard, and you're armed, you're equipped with everything you've learned. What comes first? Kind of putting together your own project, or kind of playing with other people and doing all that other kind of session-y work and.
No, the first thing was my own project. I've really been fronting my own band since I was like 25. I was like 24 when I left Bard. I actually, so I ended up working so Bard is across the river from Woodstock, New York. And I ended up working for the photographer who shot Bob Dylan in the band. Sky Elliott Landy. I ended up designing and co-producing a fine art photo book of all his photographs of the band. So I did that right out of college. I did that as I was also recording my music for the first time. I was writing all the time while I was at Bard. That's when things started like happening. And I would just kind of, every time I was sitting at a piano, because I think, again, I kind of unlocked this thing inside of me. I would hear melodies, I would write, I would be singing melodies, and I would just have all these voice memos. So I was like, I started recording some of the music and knowing like, once I leave here and I'm not doing this project anymore, which ended up taking 2 years, I'm going to start full on pursuing music. So I moved back home to New Jersey, and it was the same thing. Like anytime I could kind of find to sit at a piano and write. And like, thankfully it was before social media really took off. So I had the time, there were not the kind of distractions there are now. There's so many distractions now. And I remember legitimately being able to sit at a piano and be like, oh, okay, like I'm writing and I can sit here for 4 hours without any distractions and get this done. And I can't tell you the last time that I've been able to like focus like that. But yeah, so then I moved to Brooklyn and I had a band in Brooklyn, like same thing. I kind of was like searching for musicians to play with, teaching them my songs. Still like obviously honing my craft as both a guitar player and a drummer. I also had to learn piano when I was at Bard because it's just a requirement. Like in your jazz harmony class, the only way you can learn theory is playing the piano.
Sure.
Right. So, and that's one thing, and that's one piece of advice I give to people, both adults and kids, especially parents who want to teach their kid, whose kids want to learn music. If they really want to do music, start on piano because everything's laid out for you and like you can build everything from that. But I kind of had to go like, I went like here and then there and then kind of here and then, I kind of jumped around, but that's why I'm a multi-instrumentalist because I started on guitar. I knew I was a drummer. And then I learned piano. So, and again, I'm sure being an artist yourself and a musician that once you know one, it's a lot easier to learn another.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like an unlock code or something like that. Like it's like
exactly.
So I'm jumping all over again. So the first album, When It Happens to You, and the newer stuff, sonically, almost sounds like two different acts. Like conscious decision to kind of change the sound, or
I think yes. Well, two things. I think definitely conscious. I think as we do as artists, like right, like we evolve, our tastes evolve, like. I'm entering into a phase right now as an artist where I feel my soul wanting to go in a much heavier direction. Like when I was at Bard and I was learning jazz, and then like I kind of came out of Bard, I've always had these like big indie rock influences. Like I love Incubus and I love Jeff Buckley. I do love John Mayer, but was not the reference of My Morning Jacket. Like these bands that I've really loved, but as I've gotten more into like the rock world, because again I was in the jazz world and then I was playing with jazz musicians and they were my band, and then some amazing musicians, but then I was playing more with rock musicians, and then I just again more music that I've always loved but I haven't really tapped into within the last 3 or 4 years, like Sabbath and Lizzie, Pink Floyd. I dove really like always loved but dove like really really deep into and kind of like all that heavy hitting hard like 70s rock, and a lot of them and also like current bands like love Ty Segall, love White Reaper, love White Denim, love like Briston Maroney and like Liz Cooper and like the OCs, like some of these other more also like garage rock bands. So I don't know, I kind of just follow where my heart wants to go, and it just happened to be with this record too. I mean, the guys that I've worked on the record, one of which was Paul Ritchie from the Parlor Mob. Are you familiar with that band, the Parlor Mob?
I'm not. I know the name, but I'm not familiar with.
They're actually from around here, but they were a very like hot, successful touring rock band in the 2000s, like I would say like the 2010s. And they were signed to Roadrunner. They were all over. I mean, they played Bonnaroo. They were, playing with, I don't remember. There were a ton of bands that they had toured with. But anyway, those guys are in a much heavier world. And Paul is one of the producers on the record. And he's also become one of my very close friends and mentors. And I just think like, again, you kind of find your people, right? Like I was working like with Danny Clinch, the photographer, which we could get into if you want. That's a whole nother conversation. And Danny's a blues guy and I love the blues. And I was playing a lot of blues with Danny, but I was also working on my own music and listening to all these bands, which I love. Like, I think an overall band that I will forever love, and people give me shit for this, I will fucking die on this hill, is Incubus. And them as like a deep cut band and as a band that is just like so musical and has so much chemistry and has so much talent and skill and just like uniqueness. Like they are a band that they always get pigeonholed into like a certain genre, and they just can't, in my opinion, be like. There's their early records in the mid 2000s, like 2005, I think was Curls with a Murder, which is like one of my favorite records of all time. And it's like that record has like psych rock, it's like metal, it's like a pop mental, like there's the way that it's mixed is like so bright. And but you're like, if this was mixed like a sludge rock record today, it would sound totally different. But like they had Brendan O'Brien, who's also produced for Springsteen and Pearl Jam and, done, I don't know that, but that record's not pop. So that's not even like the right term. Anyway, I'm just like going off, but I don't know what your question was. Something about my sound, right?
Yeah, it was just the evolution of sound. Yeah. No, I mean, you hit the marks there. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think too, like, I think a lot about this because I'm a huge music nerd, right? So like, and I love like everything from like, I love like Jeff Beck. I love Jeff Buckley. I know that I mentioned him, but he's another huge, like, will always be like one of my like top 4 of all time. Like, there's just like a darkness. I like dark. And I do like metal and I like heavy rock, but even just like the darkness of the guitar tones and like the thickness of like the fuzzed out nature of some of these bands, like I really brought that into this. I wanted to take that chance. Like, it just felt like I was like, I could definitely be like, I'm sure some producer could come along and be like, we're going to make you the next Amy Winehouse. But it's like, no, fuck that. Like, I love everything from, like I said, My Morning Jacket to Thelonious Monk to Thin Lizzy. And it kind of comes out in the music. I think I have this jazzy voice. But again, I think now where the direction the music's going is like kind of more in this sort of like Deep Purple, like epic kind of like vocal. That's, because my voice is one of my strongest instrument. I don't always write for my voice because I just kind of write what comes out of me. And like Blind Faith, that's another band I love. So it's like some of this, like the song Acceptance, which is the title track. I tell people it's kind of like Sabbath meets Blind Faith. And When It Happens to You was kind of like, that was my first full length. And there's a softness to that. I think like, I don't know why we didn't take more chances. I didn't have the knowledge of audio engineering that I have now where I can be like, no, I want this vocal doubled. No, I want this guitar doubled. No, I want to fuck this up. Like, let's make this sound like I can actually say like, oh, can we compress this less? Oh, can we make this guitar darker? We have too much of the highs here. Can we make the drums sound more roomy? Can we put more of the roomy? Like, I have more of a knowledge now to be able to sort of dictate what I want sonically, if that makes sense.
No, 100% makes sense. And it comes with age and growth, like because I'm sure, and what I'm kind of gathering from what I'm hearing is that you are no longer, I don't even want to say afraid because it's like a weird word to say, but like you're confident enough to know what you want to say. No, this isn't what we're doing right now. Like, let's do this.
Yeah.
And it shows, like you can hear it.
That's so awesome. And I spend a lot of time, like I have a whole playlist of like 200 songs of sonic references for the record. And Eric Romero, who was the other producer on the record, there were a couple people that worked in it, but those 2 guys really helped me do the most. Who he plays with the Front Bottoms. He's amazing. And he's worked with a ton of people around here. And he's just like, and the 2 things I love about both Paul and Eric is that they are so don't give a fuck, make great art. Just like be genuine and make great art. And that's like kind of like I lash onto these guys as like, this is like, oh my God, like I had kind of been through the ringer with some industry stuff and thinking, oh, I need to be this way or that way. And COVID happened, everyone's taking a pause, and I'm just like living immersed in just creating with these guys and with my bandmates and with myself. And it's just like exciting. But yeah, I mean, I have a playlist of like 200 songs on Spotify. There's just like, this is the exact drum tone I want for this song. Let's get this. And these guitars, like a song like Cruel, 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 I was referencing White Reaper a lot because I do listen to that band. Do you know those guys?
I know the single that XPN was playing like crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they are like kind of, I see them as like, at least their guitars, like kind of the second coming of Thin Lizzy, like in the modern age, because they have all these like really epic screaming guitars. And that's what I wanted. Like the record is very guitar heavy. Like even the mastering engineer was like, he came back to me with the title track. He's like, these guitars are way too loud. He's like, I understand, but like, they're way too, like, I want to hear your voice. I want to hear the story. And I compromised with him on that. But I also was like, like the record needs the heavy, like that is what's kind of the drums and the guitar. And of course I'm the drummer and the guitar player. So it's like, and that was a hard thing in mixing this record took me like way too long. Like like to the point where my band was like, Rachel, you need to the record's called Acceptance. They're like, art imitates life. Accept it, move on. And so here we are. I'm like, it's going out to the world, and like, I'm stoked that I'm not obsessed about fucking panned guitars anymore.
That's great. When did you start working on it?
So we started recording Acceptance the end of February 2020.
Oh, yeah. And then what happened? No.
Well, when there are germs in the world, no, I'm just kidding. When something gets wild in a lab in Wuhan, I'm just kidding. Who knows? I'm not going to play that card. So, yeah. And then we had to stop. Like, it was just kind of like, we were going to start doing, Paul and I got in to start recording Acceptance. And it was kind of like this crazy thing too, where I had special guests on it. And there are some special guests on it I can't mention yet, but as people follow it, they'll find out more. We actually had an opportunity to get like a really famous guitar player to play on Acceptance. So we immediately tracked that and tracked like the beds for him. But after like 7 months, like of radio silence, we were like, forget it. We need to move on. It's COVID. He was in a huge band that had just like released a record and they were about to tour. And we were like, this isn't going to happen now. We have to pivot. So it was kind of like a continued comedy of errors of like, hey, it's COVID. We're here. We're going to book time. Oh, wait, so-and-so has COVID. We can't meet now. Now we're in quarantine. Oh, you've been exposed? Okay, bye. See you in 3 weeks, And then like that mixed with like my dad was really sick and dying of cancer, which is like a whole nother thing. And my parents moving. And then it was kind of like, the world's trying to get back to normal, but it's not. Like our world is just completely different now. And that's a whole, and the industry is completely different now.
That was actually one thing I wrote down as a note because I saw the reel about social media, and so I guess my question is releasing something in 2018 and releasing something in 2023 is not even vaguely similar. It's completely different. Is it still worth it?
Dude, honestly, I don't know.
Yeah.
So like I went on that rant at like 1 a.m. I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to put this on. And it's coming from a place of like, right. Like being reflecting on all these things of what you're saying is like, I've put out this first single, and for just this first single, the amount of work that I have done is probably 20 times the amount that even went into releasing the whole record in 2018. Now, granted, it's different. I was taking I already was saying, okay, we have all this B-roll content. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Then we have the music video. They have this and we have that. But it's like to just sift through content alone, because now if you are an artist and you really want to put yourself out there in a real way, you are 100% a committed content creator. And you just have to say, okay, all right, here we go. Like, and it really is. It's like, I've been told by everyone in the industry, not just like my team, and I love my team and they're amazing. And they've been like championing me and they've been helping me. And I have management now and they're amazing, but it's the same thing. And everyone says the same thing. Listen, nobody wants to do it, but you got to do it. Social media is the game. Social media is the game. We need you posting on TikTok every day. We need you doing this. And I get it. I'm seeing results, but like, it is so much time and you have to, and then there's also this, again, what I brought up, which I was like, the idea of just putting your music out there and then posting the same videos on TikTok and YouTube shorts. Sure, like new people are seeing it, but as a human, you're also like, what am I doing this for? Like, what meaning? How is this helping why do I do this? How's this helping the world? I didn't get into playing music to be on this all the time. I just didn't. And I think rock, it's the most anti-rock and roll thing. I think all my friends who are rock musicians, like I have successful friends in the industry or just who are in the community, and they're like, fuck this. I'm not going to live my life that way. So me putting that out and saying, I'm willing to do the social media thing, but it's just like anything else, right? Also, we have to be adaptable. And like, if we want to succeed. So I'm sitting here being like, okay, how can I authentically put not even just like myself out there, but like connect with people? Because I'm sick of just like, when social media started becoming a thing, we all were like, me, hey, pay attention to us. And that's like what it is now still, but like, how can we make it more than that? it's like, can we have communities where that's why I started that dialogue where I was pretty much like, hey, what does it mean to put oneself out in the virtual world, which is now our reality in a lot of ways, even though it's also not? And how do we do it authentically?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, what are we doing?
Yeah, because podcasting, much like music, it's the same thing. Like, anybody you talk to and anybody I've talked to is like, well, what are your socials like, and da 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 da, and you got to build all this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, okay, I get it, but what it sounds like to me is you're telling me to be an influencer, not a podcaster, because I don't understand the conversion. Yes, okay, I got the click, I got the view, I got the retweet, the reshare, the whatever it is. I sound like a 46-year-old right now, so I gotta relax on all this. But
no, I'm right there with you, and I'm 34, so I get it.
Yeah, well, but seriously, like, I'm like, this isn't the content I want people to see. You know what I mean? Like,
and then it begs the question of like, because right, these things are so subjective, and that's the same thing I was saying on the and there was so much more I could say. Actually, I was just ranting for like 15 minutes, and I cut it down to 6 because like nobody's gonna want to watch this, and I just put it out in the world. I was like 1:30 in the morning going to bed. I was like, good night, everyone, and I woke up to like 120 likes. I was like, oh wow, okay, people actually responded. But I think like it begs the question of like, okay, well, what does success mean to you? And yeah, exactly, what's important to you to put out in the world, like if it's more important to you, like, and I understand there's a certain level of like, if it's a business and you need to make money, yes, and that's where I'm at. Like, I'm trying to put my music out in a real capacity and get real fans and reach people, and like I said, I'm willing to put in the work. But I really am at this point where as a human being, I'm having these conflicts within myself about being like, my mom said it to me, she sees how hard I'm working. And she's like, is this really worth it? Like, what are you, where is your, like, what do you want from this? And the goal is to be touring and playing and connecting. And the reality is that you can still do that on social media. I think like, yeah, it's really just the same thing. Like, whatever makes sense to you. Like, if you feel like to me, I don't like when someone wants to do a podcast, like, I don't even care about that stuff. I'm like, you know what? I just want to connect with this person on a genuine level and have a conversation, because I also think that this is a way, like, I look at something like a podcast, I'm like, wow, this is a great way to like have a dialogue with people, connect with people, and build a community. And I think if we can look at the internet in that capacity, which it is, it's not the same. And I think as humans, like, I know for myself personally, I'm dying to have community in the music industry and where I'm at. I'm also in a weird place where I'm transitioning out of my local community into regional and a national level, which is where one wants to be, but it's isolating, and the world feels isolating right now. So it's like, well, where's the balance in all of this? And I would just say, like, yeah, I don't know. It's very interesting that that's how it is in the podcast world as well. I didn't really realize that.
Yeah. And, and look, it's like the way I've kind of started to approach it is just like, all right, some for you, some for me. Like, I get it. I got to do the dance sometimes. But,
exactly. I think as long as you can strike a balance of like making sure that, I mean, and I have not been doing a good job at striking the work-life balance, but like, that's the thing. And I'm like, I'm fine with doing the work. I'm fine with organizing it and just like putting it out there. But when it starts being like days of like hours of like thinking about it, I'm just like, I want to get back to what makes me me and why I do this, which is the art. It's creating, it's writing, it's cutting the records. And I know I'm also in a release cycle right now, so it's a little different. But for instance, like, we had a bunch of shows this summer, and now I'm not really playing shows because like my priority is like all of what needs to happen to just get the music out. And I didn't get the music out earlier because I was playing all the shows.
Yeah. What do you have a target date? Is there a date set?
We're going to be, the record's coming out in February.
Okay. That's cool.
But we have singles coming out like every month. So knock on wood.
Yeah. Well, that this is one of the other conversations I've had a lot, especially with much younger artists, which is like the concept of album versus EP and even releases, because like even that's all now shaken up and all and confusing, and there's reasons for everything, and like I'm just old. I just have to be old and accept it. Like,
no, I don't think you do. I also think there's the reality of like, this is another conversation. Like, what the fuck is sustainable? Like, if it's gonna drive, like, if it's gonna drive you down to the ground, and I don't know how much of this social media stuff is sustainable. And I feel like, and I've had this conversation with some of my rock musician friends, like, will there just be at some point a shifting, and they'll be like, you know what, fuck this, we don't want to do this anymore. Like this, we're gonna do our own thing. Maybe going back to making CDs and cassette tapes again. I don't know. I think on the one hand, social media obviously allows for this like vast like pool of people that you can tap into. But I think that no, you are not sounding old. This all makes sense. And I feel the same way. I feel like a lot of authentic, genuine rock musicians that I know feel the same way. And I think like, being able to like, and it is, the release thing's weird, right? Because I actually I'm butting into this issue right now of just like, I had all these grandiose plans of releasing this record and doing all these singles, and we're still kind of doing it, but it's so much work because it's like a single a month. That's so much to get together, so much content, artwork, everything needs to be into Spotify at least a month in advance to pitch. It's like, and like I said, I'm super grateful to my team because they've been helping me, but it's every single day I'm like, okay, like I'm going to get off this call with you, and there's like, I got to finish artwork. I have to post on Instagram. I have to like, I have a video out now, and I haven't even like been able to really like push it in ways that I want, only because like all I can handle, I think, I don't know about you, it feels like this for everyone, is like what's right here.
Yeah.
So like, what's the balance? Like, where do we draw the line? I don't know. You don't sound crazy. I'm right there with you.
And there's it's always bizarre to me. This is the other thing is like, this is why I'm terrible at socials also, is because like the things I put all of the effort and work into just flatline, and then the things that like I just randomly throw up, like I think one of my videos with the most views, or one of my shorts on YouTube with the most views, was me opening 2 t-shirts of my own, like my own t-shirt. I did an unboxing of my own stuff that no one has ever bought, but somehow this thing has like thousands of views, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, can you buy a t-shirt too when you watch it? Like, I don't know.
It just doesn't, that's the other thing, it like doesn't equate, right? That was part of my post too. I was just like, I am not going to get on social media and parade my life around and be like, come get ready with me, come watch me cook it. Like, who the fuck? No. I don't understand how some of the videos have like thousands of likes. That's just like, hey, check out my outfit. It's like, can we talk about something meaningful? Like then my friend sent me a message because I posted like same thing. I posted this clip of a lyric video that took me like hours to make yesterday, which was like, because the music video came out, but I also had already posted the clip, so it didn't do as well. But I got like 60 likes, and other things, like I'll put a selfie up and I get like 100 likes in like 20 minutes. I'm looking at it, I'm still getting likes. It's 450 likes. I'm like, and that's what my friend said. He's like, music 0, like 100. And he's like, and it better be, you better look hot in the selfie. Like, it's just like, or yeah, whatever he said. It just was very funny. But yeah, I don't know. I just trying to find the balance behind all of it. And I guess that's just life now, but I guess that's life ever.
Sure. And look, as much as I bitch about it, here I am, and I still do it, right? Like I can't, there's no other life I want.
Right.
Like,
well, and that's why I think the dialogue just needs to be like, how can we all make this work for us and still make sure that like we're checking in with each other, we're supporting each other, we're like being real about it, not just like that. Again, that's why I put that video up. I was just kind of like, you know what, I'm sick of just thinking about this, and I talked to my friends about it, but my team has been like, you need to put like more authentic, like the music stuff is great, but also make sure you're putting up just stuff of like everyday life and like rehearsal and unpacking your car, like making breakfast in the morning. And I'm just like, also, it's not even that you don't want to do that. I literally don't have time.
That too.
Like literally all my time is like I've been going into making these beautiful fucking reels and videos, and what is the texture of the font so I can read it over the, and it's like, again, moral of the story of like what you're saying is like, I guess it's quantity over quality now, but I also want to make sure what I'm putting out is quality stuff. So that means it's going to take longer in every capacity. So I don't know, like trying to find the positive in it, but like also trying to stay sane. Like,
yes. Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, it's a weird world, and you just gotta kind of rock with it. But like like you said, like the thing that blows my mind is, so we're having this conversation. We agree, obviously, that the reel you put up resonated because so many people reacted to it, right? So we all agree that this is all stupid and dumb. Why is it what we have to do? It doesn't make sense. Nobody likes it.
I know. And that's kind of what I thought about as well. I don't know. I just think it's because of the accessibility. And you know what? I mean, I do have my theories about it, because also the way we're being like, and this is like getting the conspiracy theory world, but the way that like we're kind of being bred as a society to be so dependent. And this became very clear during COVID. Like, it's almost like we have to buy into the things that we don't want to do, because if we don't, we're just going to get left behind.
Yeah.
And that is, I guess one could say, like, that happens in every sort of turn of generations. But the way it's happening now, and I've read about this, about how like we're advancing as a society, like technology is advancing, like I think it's like 150 times faster than like we ever could keep up with.
Yes.
So it's like, I guess the alternative is like we pick a different profession, or you just put it out there and say, you know what, I'm just going to put this out, and like whoever sees it. But at some point too, right? I feel like maybe 3 years ago, we all were like, fuck this, we're not going to do this. And now we're all seeing like, well, if you do put in some work, or if you do really want any sort of community or to be part of it, you have to do it.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't know. That's why I'm saying I'm kind of hoping that there at some point will be sort of like a technology revolt, and that people in our industry will, but I don't know, because it's also like, if you get viral on TikTok, or like, I see results. I see how I've gained new followers. I see how I've met new people. And that's what my management said. He's like, you have access to billions of people that you will never be able to. And he's like, that's how you have to look at this. And also that if you're not doing it this way, there are thousands of hundreds of millions of people and kids behind you willing to do it.
Yeah, that's true.
That are just as talented or less or more, but they're playing the game. So it's like, I guess this is just embracing it and accepting it. I still feel the same way though. It still like just doesn't really sit totally like that. I'm like hearing my voice in my head, like, that's not a good enough answer. Like, no. Defiance. It's like a teenager. It's like teenage Rachel being like, no, I'm not going to do it. I want to do it.
Yeah.
No, play outside instead.
I look, everybody's against AI. I'm like, bring it on. Anything that can do all of this for me, let's do it. Like,
well, that's the other thing, right? Like, we have these tools now where it's kind of like, if you have to, like, they're giving us no choice. Like, it's like, you have to cut corners now. And I think about this all the time, where it's just like, if I want to succeed and do it, like this release taught me a lot. I'm super grateful. I worked way too hard on a lot of the stuff, like the videos I made, that half of them will probably never see the light of day, and took me a long time, but I feel like I have at least a little bit of a formula. But I realized I'm like, you got to just do it and put it out. Like, there's not enough hours in the day now. There never was, but yeah, because you've got things like AI, things that are just convenient, it doesn't mean it's better. But we're living in a world of just like, if you don't buy into the fucking convenience of like technology, and everything's fucked up, it like doesn't work. It's like, you go to the doctor's office and everything's on an iPad, or like you got to check in when you go to LabCorp and get your blood, and then they don't even like, it's just, everything's like a robot now. Sorry, I'm going off.
You did it. Yeah. No, it's like I forget what it was that I had to do recently, and they were like, well, you need the app. And I was like, no, I don't. Why do I need the app? What app? Just for this one interaction that we're about to have, and then I can delete it? Like, what are we doing?
No, I know. It's just kind of like, can I call a number, please? Can I just talk to you in? and I hate that. I'm sorry. I feel like I sound so negative. I'm like not trying to sound negative.
It's my fault. I brought it up.
No, no, but it's like I think about these things all the time now. And I think about like, right, the concept of human evolution is that like when things change, like at its very basic, like Darwinism and being adaptive and our genetics mutating over time to help us adapt to our environments. Like our environment now is technology, but it's like non-human, not to like fucking talk about the alien shit, like non-human meaning like technology. Like, so how do we adapt when as humans, we're like, not, maybe it's just going to be the next generation. I don't know. I still want to be outside and like in real life with people. So, and I don't think there's nothing that can replace that. Just nothing.
I know. It's a dark world.
One episode of Black Mirror. Do you ever see that show?
Yeah.
It feels like every episode is like 2 steps away from being too real. Now I feel like we're 1 step away.
Yeah. It's tomorrow's headlines today is what that show should have a tagline of.
Yeah, right. But like, I don't know, just keep doing your thing because you're fucking awesome. And don't worry about trying to be an influencer. You'll be an influencer by being you.
You too. Look, this is what I tell people, and it's probably bad advice, but I'm like, you create awesome stuff. So just keep creating awesome stuff, and people will find it. Or if they don't, who cares? You still created something awesome, whether someone receives it or not.
I really think that's the big takeaway, and that was kind of like the message throughout working on my record with my guys, my producers, that were just like, you need to not give a fuck about anything else except the art. And it's true. Like, and I'm a big believer of just like, if something is genuine and it's authentic, because I'm always just trying to live my truth. And that's what it is. It's like, even the conversation last night, it's just in a desire to know and understand the truth of what makes us all tick and makes us all here. So I think that's the best advice you can give, because we're not going to stop creating. Like, to stop creating for us is to just essentially be non-existent.
Yep. That is death. And we're avoiding death.
Right. Moral of the story here. We will, but we are both accepting and avoiding.
That's right. Well, at this time, you want to go through the Jauntlet questionnaire. These are my questions I ask every guest that comes through this show. It starts with the one-hit wonders, and it's one-hit wonder in name only of the segment, not of the artists. You're just picking a favorite, Billy Joel or Elton John?
Billy Joel.
Yeah?
Yeah. I think of the two, I mean, Elton John's great too, but of just the two, I have a nostalgic connection because my dad listened to Billy Joel, so I just know his music more.
Yeah. Also, mid to North Jersey is close enough to New York, and yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. Listen, we're in the tri-state area here where I am, north of Asbury Park, and I mean, like, Vienna is one of like the greatest songs ever, and The Stranger. I mean, that whole record is just like, talk about like what we're talking about, this idea of putting on a facade. I just remember hearing that as a teenager and like it really resonating with me.
Dig it. Number 2, Debbie Harry or Joan Jett?
Debbie Harry.
Yeah?
Yeah, I love Blondie, and I was her for like Halloween for 3 years.
Oh, okay.
Like scattered, like high school 1 year, college 1 year, Brooklyn 1 year. Yeah.
That's like me with Pee Wee Herman. I think there was like a good 10-year stretch where it was like, oh, it's Halloween. Nate's dressed as Pee Wee Herman again. Here we go.
That's a great costume.
It really was. I got one of my favorite Halloweens of all time. I got to get up on a bar and someone put tequila in the jukebox, and it was.
That's brilliant. Amazing. Is there video of that's going to surface one day?
There is not, but there is photography of it at least. So it exists. It exists in the world still somehow. Aretha Franklin or Tina Turner?
Aretha.
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing. I mean, like, I grew up listening to Aretha, and like so much of the stuff that she did, just like really, I was actually going to make a note about this before, about like my roots for singing, especially, are in like soul and jazz and blues. I'm like definitely like a blues singer, but like in the context of the music I'm making now. But that's a thing where like I can go back to any of those songs and just sing, and it's so fulfilling for me. Like we do a version of Natural Woman as a medley in one of my songs, and it's like always one of my favorite things to perform.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
Nirvana or Pearl Jam?
Nirvana.
Yeah, I could have guessed.
Yeah.
Even with didn't you play with Mike McCready?
I did. Yes,
Yeah.
I did play with Mike McCready. Yeah, I know, but like, you know what? It's interesting. Same thing. I just like never. I know some people are like so crazy devoted Pearl Jam fans. I just like have never really like truly listened to their music. I've seen them live. They're great, but for me and Kurt Cobain and his aura and his voice and his lyrics, like I don't know. Again, it's a nostalgia thing. Like I think about listening to those records as a kid and a teenager, and there was just something about him that was just like, wow, this is raw and real and like really resonates with me.
I can dig it.
Yeah.
Janis Joplin or Stevie Nicks? I think I know this answer.
Oh, definitely Janis.
I thought so. Yeah.
That's another one. I mean, I love Janis, and when I first started singing, I started singing in a band with my old guitar player. We had a classic. It was first a Grateful Dead guitar and drum duo, and I played drums, and then it just turned into classic rock. And we used to do like this amazing version of Ball and Chain. Same thing. I love Janis, and I feel like I can relate to her story being sort of this like lone wolf female powerhouse of like I definitely feel a lot of loneliness as an artist. I always have. And it's something I'm really trying to combat in the world, but it's tough. But yeah, I love her. She's just unstoppable.
I can dig it. The big one, the battle of your Ed Sullivan tape, the Beatles or the Stones?
The Stones.
Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, when I was a child, I was like 5 or 6. I was obsessed with the Beatles. But once I discovered more rock, and I appreciate what the Beatles did for music, but I don't listen to them anymore. It's not a band really that I want to put on. I love John Lennon. I actually really love some of his solo work. But for me, I think now in my like matured musical years, it's definitely the Stones.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's my pick. So
yeah.
Yeah. You don't have to tell me. The last one of the one hit wonder is Bohemian Rhapsody or Stairway to Heaven?
Stairway to Heaven. Oh,
yeah.
Actually, you know, it's funny. My first thought, I didn't say Bohemian Rhapsody because I've just heard it so many times that you just like. I think I'm gonna go with Bohemian Rhapsody only because like if you objectively take the two, and like I've heard both a lot, but I think I've heard Bohemian Rhapsody more, but just as like a piece of music and as a band, and like who doesn't love Led Zeppelin, of course, but there's something to be said about Queen and like their unique stamp in the world. And the fact that that's like one of the most played songs on like a classic rock station to the point where I'm like, ugh, I don't need to hear that again. But when you objectively think like, wow, what these musicians were doing and what a vocalist like Freddie Mercury did, I don't know. I could go either way because also Stairway to Heaven is such a classic. That might be a stalemate for me.
That's fine. You're more than welcome to push on these.
Also, a side note, which is like kind of going back to growing up, like I had amazing musical people in my life that were not even musicians, but just loved great music and heavily influenced me. When I was in elementary school, I had a music teacher, Mr. Frank, and he was the best. And he actually like, it was like every Halloween he'd do this like Paul is Dead, like would go through the whole thing about the Beatles and like playing the records backward for us and like telling us the stories. And every school dance, he would end the dance because he would DJ and like we'd all bring our CDs. And of course it was like, you know, people playing the Backstreet Boys and Britney Spears, but every single school dance, he would close it with Stairway to Heaven.
It's beautiful.
And it was
Shout out to Mr. Frank.
Shout out Mr. Frank. He was definitely a huge mark on my musical life.
That's awesome. Teachers are great. Like there's no one better than like a really good teacher. Bad teachers are kind of the worst people in the world though. So it's like, it's a give or take.
Isn't that amazing? It just like really speaks to the power of education and how important it is that the right role models are in place.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. The next section is the top 10 countdown. Of course, I don't have to tell you this, but Jawn can be whatever you want it to be. It doesn't have to be music. Number one, what was your first Jawn? What was the first thing you were obsessed with as a kid?
Oh, the Beatles.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Beatles. And then I loved dogs. I loved it. Like I had an obsession with dogs and Snoopy, but it was the Beatles. Yeah.
Excellent. Number two, what's your current Jawn? What are you into right now?
I actually really love oh my God. Okay. Well, besides the fact that my whole life is music, I'm very much so into like healthy living and mindfulness. And I like a lot of like science podcasts. And I'm just kind of like in this phase in my life where I think, especially because everything else is so out of balance, having healthy living and understanding like things like Taoism and things like, like what it needs to be like truly living from a place of like mindfulness and truth. I know that's like so meta, but honestly, that's like what inspires me these days the most. And like sort of the health and wellness world. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's absolutely beautiful answer. I love that. I was a part of me was really just hoping you were like my current Jawn social media. No, but
definitely not.
Yeah. Number three, what was the first concert you went to?
Well, the first real rock concert I went to was, God, oh my God, I think it was 311 actually.
Okay.
I think the first like concert like where I was in seats was Britney Spears. I think I was like 8.
Nothing wrong with that.
But I was 311 at Convention Hall in Asbury Park when I was maybe 14. Yeah.
Okay, I can dig that. Number four, what was your last concert? What was the last live show you saw?
Oh my God, I don't know. There's so many. Wait, what was the last show? I'm trying to think like the last show I actually went to that I just like went to really enjoy. Isn't it so sad that I actually don't know? I mean, I play so many shows. I was playing shows every single weekend from Memorial Day through last weekend. So, I mean, listen, I went and saw Incubus last year. I love them. They're one of my favorite bands. And like, it was a moment where I had a huge show the next day. I actually was playing in Low Cut Connie, Philly band. I was touring.
Yes, Adam was on the show 3 episodes, a few episodes ago.
No way. That's awesome. Oh, love Adam. Shout out. We had been touring. We were in Minnesota. We played the Minnesota. Was that Minnesota? No, we did Minnesota in September. We were in Wisconsin, and it was the beginning of August of last summer. And I had to fly home because I had a huge show that Saturday in Asbury Park for my band. And Incubus was playing PNC, which is like a huge venue around here, the night before. And I, on a whim, I had like 4 hours of sleep. I knew I was going to have an insane day the next day. I was like, fuck it, I need to go. Like my soul wants this. And I'm so glad I did because it was so inspiring. And it got me through like the whole performance the next day. I was just thinking about those guys and how much they inspire me to do what I do. And it just was really nice.
That's incredible. I love it. Power of music, friends.
The power of music.
Number 5, what was your favorite concert? Best live show you ever went to?
I mean, again, I know there's more, but Incubus, they always just deliver. I mean, so I guess my last live show was like probably like See Here Now that I think about it. But yeah, the most memorable, there's been a couple of memorable shows throughout my lifetime. It is interesting though, how when you are a live band and also a touring musician, how just like the actual idea of like going to shows for me is just like, it's just like my life now. I don't even think about it.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
A lot of times I hate to say this. I hate to say like, I don't enjoy it, but like, I'm always in the mind, like, it's very hard to get out of the mindset of like, I'm networking or I need to make sure I talk to this, or like, I'm thinking about this, or like, it's very hard to be unobjective now when that's like your whole life.
But it's even part of my content creation, because like now I'm like I got to record one of these songs, upload it to YouTube, because that's also content that I can put up, and like I'm always thinking about it. Like
yeah, I mean I saw Illiterate Light lately. Those guys, do you know them?
No.
They're based out of they're great. They're based out of Richmond, Virginia. I mean, They're all over touring, but they actually, if you know those guys, Malad and the Humble, which is a
Yeah,
Philly
yeah.
band, I actually think they played Philly. I think they played.
They're playing right now, I think.
Damn. I was like, how's it playing tonight? Am I gonna miss that? Yeah, those guys, they were touring with Literally. Anyway, those guys always put on an amazing show, and they came to Asbury Park, and I went to see them. They're good friends of mine. So that's another band. But yeah.
Awesome. I love it.
Anyway.
Number 6, who have you never seen live that you wish you would have? They can be living or dead.
The band.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, so that's another huge influence of mine is the band. And I don't really mention them that much because like I don't write music that sounds like the band. I don't really even listen to music that sounds like the band, but they are without a doubt like top 3 for me, like just what they did and their attitude and their musicality. And I'm a singing drummer, and Levon is like my everything. And so I'd say the band or Jeff Buckley.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, Jeff Buckley played at the Grape Room. Well, what used to be the Grape Street Pub. Yeah. And that's like one of my like, holy shit, I lived here at that time. Like I could have been there, but I wasn't. Like I didn't know about it. And I don't think it was planned or announced, but yeah.
Yeah. Was that during his like live at Cine years?
No, it was actually somebody was just on EJ Simpson was telling me when it was, but I'm pretty sure it was while he was working on what is now released as sketches from A Sweetheart the Drunk.
I love that record.
Which, by the way, I'm not going to lie, my favorite Jeff Buckley song of all time is Morning Theft. Like, I just think it's so hauntingly beautiful. Like,
I love that song. That record is so good. Witches Rave.
Oh my God.
What was the other one? New Year's Prayer. There's like he was just so prolific. Like everything that came out of him was just so fucking wise and spiritual and beautiful. Like that's the thing I think, like sort of going back to your talking about like the passion, like what's my current favorite Jawn and everything is like, yeah, I just think more and more this idea of like authenticity and like understanding and knowing yourself, which I also think there's such a correlation between that and like the essence of what it means to be an artist and create like meaningful art. So, I don't know, but he was just the master of all of that. I mean, Opened Once, that is such a great song. Like is that on Sketches from My Sweetheart the Drunk?
I think so.
Yeah, it is. It is. There's another song on there that I really, really love, and I can't pin it right now. But yeah, all of that whole record, Morning Theft is fucking wild.
It's incredible. Here's a crazy thing. Excuse me. Oh my God, I get something in my throat. Anyway, so
for you.
There you go. Here's a crazy thing because we have a mutual in G Love. And I don't know if you've ever seen it, but there's a video, and it's someone just shot it in a parking lot, and it's G like just kind of at a festival playing, sitting on the street, and Jeff Buckley walks up, and they just start jamming together. Okay. What? And yes, it's the most it's like my two worlds. All right. If I had two influences, it's those two, and they just exploded together. And like, I asked him about it, and I was like, what the fuck is this? And he was like, I want to say like Jimmy Jazz's girlfriend used to work at the Chenet. And so they just knew Jeff just from that. And then they're playing this festival, and Jeff was there, and he was like, "Hey Jeff, do you want to sing on this?" And he was like, "Okay." And it's just them dicking around, but like, it's the most amazing video.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, some of his like live videos. Oh, Dream Brother, first of all, is one of my favorite songs of all time. And I've been saying to the guys, like, we have to do a cover of this. This is just so, oh God, that song is incredible. I mean, it's so psychedelic. I just like his music embodies like such an emotion and a nostalgia that's just like, it feels like so many things at the same time happening. And it also feels like it just exists in like this timeless world. And that's a lot of the music and art that I love is things that feel like they exist in sort of a timeless bubble. And I do feel that way about the band's music as well.
Definitely.
At least from Big Pink. Yeah.
Definitely. Number 7, name an unappreciated Jawn, something you wish more people paid more attention to.
I think themselves and being mindful. Like, I don't know. This has just kind of been like my life as of late of like understanding what it means to be healthy and well, and like I see so much of that, like connecting again with like a sort of spiritual idea of like the source and well-being. Like, I don't know if you're a fan of Rick Rubin or if you've read his book.
I haven't read it yet, but it's in the queue.
Yeah, I haven't either, but I've like watched a lot of interviews and he speaks specifically about the source. I don't know, these sort of like Eastern philosophies that I am just finding more and more, there's a lot of a correlation between that and like creating music and also just knowing and loving oneself. And I think that, I don't know. I know that's like esoteric and vague. I guess that's just where my brain's at right now.
It's hey man, that's what we want. That's what we love it.
And going off of that, I think the reason why, and it does tie back to this whole social media thing, I think as a society and a world right now, like we're so broken because like our collective consciousness is being like, they're trying to like kind of like stifle and dip it down. And I think that's what a lot of the vapidness of social media unfortunately does. And it really bothers me. But we really need to, as like a society and humanity, like raise our collective consciousness. And I think that we can, like the humans are amazing creatures and have so much potential. And it's just like, why not? You know, I have to plug my computer in, but I'm listening.
Yeah. No worries.
Thought it was plugged in, but it wasn't. Anyway, we're good.
Number 8, favorite album.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna like I said A Curl After the Murder before. So just because I already noted it, I'm not going to. But this record right here, which is Pink Floyd Animals, is one of my favorite records of all time. So I would say that, or I would say A Curl After the Murder. Yeah, let's go with those. There's so many more I could go into, but like right now, like that was a very influential, I was just listening to this record a lot while I was working on my record, and whether or not that like came across, because the songs were pretty much fleshed out and the parts were fleshed out, but I like sometimes to just listen to records I really love and just be like, wow, this is, and sort of like parallel think about what was it like when I'm like here, like, trying to cut vocals, how were these guys feeling? And, when they were doing that too, it's just kind of a relatability thing,
Definitely.
Okay. I want to ask you, what's your favorite record?
So it's I don't even want to say that it's laughable or anything like that, but it's Pinkerton by Weezer.
Oh, I love that record.
And it's mostly because like it just one, it's like an instant time machine for me and it puts me in a place and time. But two, it just sonically resonates, like the production on it, and it's why I think I reject most recent Weezer. Is because like there's a rawness and an openness and a vulnerableness in the music itself, and I'm not even talking about the songwriting, all right, that just has all disappeared, and it's all, I don't even want to say it's overproduced because like that's insulting. I'm not saying that like they've killed their babies, but like it's there. I heard Brian Bell say one time, because they were like, each Weezer album is kind of them trying to do something else and trying to do like a different band, like this is our blah blah blah, this is our like the one Van Weezer, this is our metal album and stuff like that. And he was like, I'd like to try to make a Weezer album, and I was like, my God, that's exactly it. That's like they've been avoiding trying to be themselves, and it goes back to the authenticity thing. Like it's just that's my answer.
I haven't listened to any of the records in years. I love that record so much so my screen name in high school there were at least two different Weezer screen names, but Rad El Scorcho was my favorite.
That's great.
So I love that record. So good. It's so
my favorite Weezer song of all time though isn't even on that album, and it's a bonus track on the Red album, and it's Miss Sweeney. Okay. So check that out if it's a later Weezer. Number 9 on this, name an artist whose output you'll consume anything they put out.
Incubus.
Yeah, I the writing was on the wall.
It's funny because I also like, and some of their like more recent stuff I'm not as into, but I will always listen and I will re-listen, and I find like songs in pretty much everything they do.
Definitely.
That I like. They do, yeah.
The 10th and final of the top 10 countdown. What is your favorite Jawn of all time? Again, doesn't have to be music, can be anything you want it to be.
I don't know. I think It probably is music.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like I live and breathe this. This is like this to me is like not a choice. This is like a like I have my friends that I'll say like, "Oh, Rachel, you're a lifer," and it's like that's accurate. Like I am obsessed with music. I couldn't even like some days I feel completely slave to this, and that's what like going back to that social media thing, what like pisses me off because it's like I wish I could just say no, but I can't because like I'm so dedicated to this and this career path, like the sacrifices I've made and the things I've done that it's just impossible for me to not do this
Yeah.
and do everything I can to like be successful and make it work. So like for better or for worse, I'm just this is me for life, I guess.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right, so acceptance in February, and then touring. Cruel, cruel, cruel is out right now. Here's the stupid question that I love to ask anybody releasing things: Are you working on the next thing, or are you going to live with this one for a while?
No, I'm working on the next thing. I'm
Yeah.
excited. I want to keep going. Yeah. And I think like kind of going back to your question about my sound, like I really feel like this record acceptance was me really trimming the fat and getting much more to the core of what I want to say. But that this stuff I'm working on now is like, okay, this is where I'm like, I want to get this music out. I'm very excited to share it with the world. It was a lot of hard work. I played all the drums, I played a lot of the guitars, I wrote a lot of the guitar parts. I like as a player, I've leveled up in every capacity. But it's like, yeah, I'm excited for what's just gonna keep coming. I think that's the silver lining in all this too, of like the social media and then this and that. That's just like just let it out and like move to the next thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. Like I feel like that's the sustenance of life is if you're not ever satisfied and you want to just keep making more and more and more. Like that's all you can ask for.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, if these cool cats and kittens want to find you on the socials, what's the best way to track you down?
So it's just my full name, which I'm sure you'll have written, but it's Rachel. My middle name is Anna. My last name is Dobken. Spotify, Apple Music, whatever you stream, please stream the song. That means like that is everything. We didn't even get into that, but like the one thing I will say is that like literally your Spotify streams now as an artist, like forget about social media. Social media is a tool to raise your Spotify because it is everything now. It will make or break you as an artist. So please, if you guys like me, stream.
They're trying to do the same thing with podcasts.
Really?
In that, yes, because Spotify bought Anchor, which was this free podcasting kind of thing. All right. And they folded it into now it's Spotify for podcasters. And now I'm the one who's going to go in the weeds here. But they used to do sponsors based off of your stream or your downloads, right? But now they've changed the sponsor program that it only counts if people listen on Spotify. And I'm like, you sons of bitches.
So craci. Well, I'll
Yeah.
make sure to share this when it's out on Spotify. 100.
Yeah, share it on Spotify.
Yeah, so that's socials is just my full name. Definitely I use Instagram the most. Follow me on Instagram because you'll find out when we're playing. We are playing in Philly. We're playing in January 20th. We'll be at World Cafe Live. I also we are just confirmed for something on the 26th of November. So I'll be posting about that. I think that's like a Christmas market thing, but we'll be
Okay.
we love Philly. I mean, we played Ortlieb's last month. I'm sorry. Now it's October, so it was August, and we had a blast. And I love Philly, and I'm probably gonna move there. So
That's cool. It's a great place. Great place to be. I always like to occasionally give people really horrible pitches. Another mutual, I pitched Nicole Atkins that she should do a Philly remix of Italian Ice and call it Water Ice, but whatever. She didn't like it.
that's so good.
Right? I thought so. She rejected it. Here's my pitch for you.
Okay.
And it's going to sound stupid. But you know how people are doing like cover albums now? Like this is like a big thing that people are just like covering other people's albums and I don't understand it. Yeah. It's weird. It's really weird.
Okay.
But my pitch for you got to do a Dokken album.
Okay? Oh, fuck yeah. I'm into it.
And you got to call it Rockin' Like Dobken. Do you see what I'm doing here? Yeah. Get out of here.
Okay. I'm into it. So my brother tried to convince me as a child that we were related to them. And the best YouTube comment I ever got was, I came here looking for Dobken, but I found you. This is great.
I would put that on every single piece of merch. That would be my tagline. That would hit everything.
I love that. All right.
It's great. It's great. Rachel, thank you so much for doing this. This was such an amazing conversation. Thank you also, not just for doing this, but for creating all of the stuff you've created throughout your life. Like, thank you for putting all of this energy into the world and continuing to do so. It's absolutely fantastic, and we're all better for it.
Oh, that's so kind. I appreciate that. And vice versa. I'm so glad that we connected and it's the start of many more conversations.
Yeah, we didn't even scratch the surface. I have so many notes that we didn't even touch, and that's that's the signs of the best interview. So
listen, I'll come back anytime. We can do something as we get closer to the record release or something, if you wish.
Yeah, sounds good to me. My thanks again to Rachel for joining me on the show today. You can find out more about Rachel on her website, www.rachelanadobken.com. Follow her on the socials at Rachel Ana Dobken on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter X, and at Rachel Ana Dobken Music on Facebook. Her latest single and music video, Cruel, 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 is out now on all streaming services, and her next single is set to drop this week on November 8th. Links to all of those, as always, can be found right here in the show notes. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to subscribe to the Yo, That's My Jawn podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. And people, it is not too late to get yourself a super awesome Jawn Scout Merit Badge for citizenship of the world just by rating and reviewing us. Don't forget to visit www.yothat'smyjawn.com for the link tree with links to articles, merchandise, all of the previous episodes of this podcast, guest appearances on other pods, and more. And while you were there, be sure to sign up on our mailing list to get all of the updates delivered straight into your inbox. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/YoThat'sMyJawn for updates and live streams. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter X at Yo That's My Jawn, and search Yo That's My Jawn on YouTube to find the Yo That's My Jawn YouTube channel. Like and subscribe the heck out of that ish. We want to hear from you. Reach out, and touch some Jawn. All right, y'all. Thanks again for hanging out with me. Oops All Bards is out this Thursday, so go subscribe to that and check it out. Blue skies. Until next time, everybody.
Hey yo, displace the guilt and embrace the pleasure. Your taste in music doesn't have to be.
Yo, That's My Jawn is a Lonely Monk production, written and produced by yours truly, Nate Runkle. Theme song by Phil Tyler Music featuring Nate 3.0. Special thanks to Fox Run Brands, DX Ferris, Andrew Scott, Natalie Runkle, and the incredibly brilliant and wickedly stunning Katie Daubney. If you or anyone you know has any ideas they would like to share or any guests they would like to hear on the podcast, please feel free to reach out to us at yothat'smyjawn@gmail.com. Or you can leave an audio message for us and possibly hear yourself on a future episode by visiting anchor.fm/YTMJ/message. Until next time, be sure to displace the guilt and embrace the pleasure and shout to the world, Yo, that's my Jawn.